bioretention or permeable pavement, bioswales, et cetera, were just kind of, realized, all right, there's some depth here in the right of way. There's some drainage infrastructure that's going to be reworked as part of these projects. And so we can incorporate these green stormwater infrastructure features. And so then as the city went through with their design engineers and started doing the projects, we coordinate with the design engineers and the city to go typically through like a conceptual schematic, 30% design, 60%, 95%, whatever it may be, all the way up to 100%. The project goes out for bid, and then once we have those costs, then we end up splitting that portion of the difference between the lid and the gray infrastructure, traditional infrastructure. And so Broadway, we were able to incorporate a good amount of bioretention cells in a few or two locations of permeable pavement. South Alamo Street, bioretention, we were able to work in. Roosevelt Avenue, bioswales, and one water polisher that we'll be monitoring just to get some more data behind that installation. District 9 Senior Center, bioswales, and then Woodlawn will go into a little more detail for the bioretention cisterns that are being installed. And then World Heritage Center will incorporate bioswale and potentially could be a cistern as well, but for sure bioswales. But that one's a little bit further behind on design right now. And then we go to the next slide. And so for Woodlawn Lake Multi-Generational Center, just an overview kind of map. And then go to the next slide. And so this is the project. There was like a dance studio there before. And so basically this map is showing the different drainage areas for the site. So you can see those thick black lines are delineating where the water is flowing or where the boundary of where the water is flowing. And then the arrows are showing the direction of where the water is flowing. So that parking lot is generally flowing on the plan view south, kind of basically into a pond area. That's the bioretention pond area. And then also the main portion of the roof drains forward into those cisterns that are delineated there as well. And then the rear roof is also draining partially into a cistern. It's split into two different cisterns basically on that back side of the roof. And then there's also a section of the parking lot, and then the cisterns overflow into both of the bioretention areas. So nothing's wasted. So if the cisterns end up filling up during a storm event, they'll just overflow into those bioretention areas, and they'll be able to put water into there as well and kind of slow it down as well before it ends up going into the adjacent waterway. And so one of the neat things about this project is the two cisterns at the front of the site are actually going to be partially used for irrigation. So it'll keep a certain amount of water level in there, basically to help water the site and go through the automatic irrigation system and reduce the amount of potable water that's being used for irrigation. So that's a pretty cool concept when you're able to do that with rainwater cisterns, to use those for your actual irrigation system. It's a pretty neat concept and helps conserve water. And then the bioretention areas are, going to go through layers of bioretention media that are going to help filter out, oils, different things that get tracked in from cars, dirt, from when it's constructed, there's always a little bit of dirt, left behind. It can capture those things and can filter it out and let the water flow through a lot cleaner than what it is when it comes into those bioretention areas. And we can go to the next. I don't think there's anything else to show on this one. This one's just showing the drainage areas again. It's a little bit easier to see the outline of where the bioretention ponds and the cisterns are in this plan, but on the front side, there's those two cisterns that are together, and then on the back side, there's one cistern on either side of the roof that's going to capture basically one half of the roof runoff on the back side there. So we're able to actually, capture all the roof runoff for this building and put it into cisterns. So it's pretty good for the site. And then almost all the parking lot as well is being captured and treated in the bioretention area. So pretty efficiently, I think, designed for this project. We can go to the next slide. And then also, just as a reminder, the city does have a bond basically program page, and there's a link. There's a page that has links to all of the different bond projects, so that you can basically read up on what's going on with each project and what may be incorporated and included in the projects. And then the next slide. And then also we do have the 2023 to 2028 COSA bond process that is upcoming. We're not, officially a part of that at the moment, but you can visit the city's website to find more information on that. And I know there's some, deadlines upcoming where they're looking to seek appointments for bond committees. And I know that, a lot of the city bond project at this point is conceptual. So there's, I think, time for, if there's anything that you are wanting to advocate for, to, to reach out to city staff or the city council staff to, get your viewpoints across. And I think I think that was pretty much what we had up first. And I think we do have some other, slides in reserve if there's some other things that we want to talk about. But I think we want to open it up and, see if there's any questions on what we did present so far.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Josh. Yeah, please.
I push this.
Yeah, and you can see your little red lights
Yes.
on.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
My name is Karen Wheeler, and I'm with the Woodlawn Lake Community Association. I have two questions about that area because we've been working with it since the 1990s over there by the casting pond. There are some, and I don't know if you know this, some cypress trees that surround that were brought here in the 1920s by some ladies that lived around there and put them. And then one day I walked there, and this isn't recently, but like two of them had been cut down. And I was thinking, who would have done this and why would they have done it? But I just wanted y'all to know that those have been there a long time with a lot of effort. And the other thing I have been very concerned about is the dog park right next to the casting pond, because the dogs urinate and everybody says, oh yeah, well, they pick it up. But what I'm talking about is like parasites that are extremely small, and you would be counting them up into the millions, maybe billions, of eggs and stuff. And if there would be some other place to put that or just get rid of it.
Yeah, Josh, I don't know anything about the dog park. Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything about that, and also didn't know about the tree issue either. Typically, when they're submitting through the city for permitting, they have to meet tree ordinance. So, I'd be surprised that they, cut down some trees that they didn't really, need to. So that's unfortunate. As far as the dog park, I think that's something you probably want to reach out to the city about. But one way to kind of mitigate some of those areas is if you are able to incorporate, bioretention or something like that, or a bioswale kind of downstream of that. They can kind of help to filter out some of those, because that is an issue. That's a really big source of pollutant in our waterways is animal waste. And the more filtration we're able to incorporate, downstream of things like that, the better it's going to be.
Yeah, I did talk to Parks about it, and they said, well, people will be picking that up and putting that in the trash, which kind of indicated to me they didn't have a very good understanding of the life cycle of those parasites within the the dogs. And so, but we have a new director now, so maybe it's different.
I will say that I sit on the construction meetings, the weekly meetings for that Woodlawn Lake Park project as the person that's overseeing the low impact development for that site. And it was brought up that casting pond, smelled bad. And so they were talking about ways to mitigate that, with aeration of that pond. So I can certainly, mention that to the project manager and just make sure that she's heard that as well.
It's also the beginning of West Side Creeks, the water for that. So it's just kind of a really bad place to have it. Thank you
Yeah, thank
for
you.
hearing my concerns.
Please. Oh, I think you need to push it. Can you push it again? Not yet. Push the, perfect. You got it.
Are you doing any water quality study on the water that's going by the Bertha Alligator Center?
That is a good question. I know I'm not directly involved with our water quality studies, but I know that we have stations all throughout the watershed. I think I showed that map where we're doing in-stream monitoring. I can get that answer for you because that would be good to know if it's, you know, right before or right after that, and, you know, seeing if anything changes.
Well, I'm suspecting that the water that's in the lake itself, Woodlawn Lake, is pretty contaminated. Because I mean, all the channels have been channelized with concrete over the years, and they haven't done anything to stop have not put any forebays in above the lake. So I mean, I'm sure it's pretty contaminated.
Josh, do you know anything about where the station is? Anywhere near Woodlawn Lake, or anything about the water quality there?
I don't know about the nearest one, but yeah, I think that's something that we can follow back up with everyone on and get that station information for the nearest one, and then also that data. We may have one near that Woodlawn Lake area, and I mean we would be able to share that, you know, information if we are able to, if we do have one in the area.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, no. Does Sarah do the monitoring themselves, or where does okay.
Yeah, we have a whole environmental science department, and in that department, there's a whole watershed monitoring group. So they do riparian investigations. So they go out to all the sections of the river, that whole 240-mile stretch, and they have water quality stations that they're always monitoring. Some of them capture data every 15 minutes. Some of them, they go out annually and make sure that the river is healthy. You know, they do all these studies. So yes, there's a lot of monitoring.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's a lot of dashboards. I think I showed an image of the water quality dashboard. Maybe I can pull it up again. But this is open to the public. And there's a few other dashboards too. We have a flooding dashboard. So I could pull this up, but essentially this is an interactive map where you can see the water quality. Primary contact recreation is a threshold that we have to report to TCQ, our Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. So we measure that annually, and well, more often than that, but we report it annually. So there's also, it breaks it out into aquatic use, general use, fish consumption. So you can really dive deep into the water quality portion. But then we also have some other viewers for flooding, future flooding. There's a couple other green infrastructure. I didn't even mention that. We have a whole map on green infrastructure projects that the river authorities put in or are working with other people to do.
Okay. Also, I had a question. What is a water polisher?
Oh,
And-
okay.
And Josh is like, I know that one. Go ahead, Josh, sorry.
He comes, I don't see him.
So it's it's basically a concrete box that has a filter essentially, and so you basically put it in line with the storm drain system, and so water will flow in. There's a first little 4-bay unit. It'll kind of settle out larger particles there. It flows over that unit as it kind of starts to build up, and then as it rises in the tank, it's going to flow up through a filter basically, and then it's going to exit out to the downstream storm drain. And so that one, the manufacturing data, looks really good on it. Now we haven't built any yet in San Antonio, so what we're doing is incorporating one into the Roosevelt bond project. so that we can then install monitoring on it and check, what is the water quality coming into that system, and then what's the water quality coming out, just to verify that the manufacturer's, specifications on what the load reductions are. But it's pretty minimal maintenance. You just really have to have a vacuum truck come out every so often, and it depends, how much loading you really have coming through that storm drain system for how often, but maybe quarterly or like semi-annually for having a vacuum truck come out and basically suck out that concrete bin. And then for that filter system, it kind of has a passive back through. So as the water draws down, it basically flushes all of the contaminants out of the filter and kind of self cleans itself. So a little less maintenance heavy than some of the other, filter systems we've seen in San Antonio before.
And essentially it can manage. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying it's something new we're trying out. Yeah.
It can manage a lot more water quickly, from what I understand. Is that right?
Yes.
In a smaller space.
Yeah, it's
Very highly
able
engineered.
it's able to flow through a good amount of volume, and then also, it's able to be in line with the storm drain system, which is pretty important because some areas we don't have a large amount of elevation drop, and so a lot of the other systems need a foot and a half of elevation drop in order for them to work. But this one works with the inflow storm drain and the outflow storm drain can be at the same elevation, so it can fit and work in a lot more areas than some of the other systems.
Okay. Do you have a visual?
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have something
Yeah.
you can drop in the chat, I could open it up.
Yes.
Or if you tell me a website, I can also do that too. I was going to pull up the Sarah website too, just to show some of that.
Did we get one of those at Woodlawn? Because I wrote it down to ask what it was, and I was kind of between
No, we didn't.
Roosevelt and
It's just
so-
Roosevelt.
Okay.
Just Roosevelt,
All right.
yeah. Are there any other questions?
Yeah,
Please.
I had a question on the cisterns. The two are for irrigation. What is the water used for in the other cisterns? And I got the feeling it's filtered before it's released, or?
Yes, Josh, you're looking at that thing. Essentially, the cisterns are there they're designed to hold water for a little bit, and then they're slowly released in these planted areas. So the idea is that, there's a lot of water coming off those roofs very quickly, and we can't capture all of that in the amount of land that we have to manage that. So it comes off the roof really quickly. It's held in these big giant container cisterns, and then it's slowly released into the planted area, which is small compared to the amount of water. So it's just a slow release, like a slow plant watering, and then a slow infiltration to clean and polish all those pollutants. So there are some filtration steps, when it goes into the cistern, off of the roof, there's a bunch of, leaves and maybe, animal waste, things up there. So there's a first little diverter that doesn't allow any leaves or big things to go in there, that they wash off. And then somewhat clean water goes into the cistern. But it's, just settling out. Like if there's any things that get in there that's bigger than that little filter screen, those just settle out and they can be cleaned out over time. But that water's just slowly released into the planted area that uses that. And that's where the treatment really happens. Other than that, there isn't other filtration steps. It's just a natural filtration in that basin.
So all the cisterns release water into the ground?
Correct.
Okay,
Into those planted areas.
okay, because I thought he was differentiating between the two and the other ones.
Yes, he was. He was saying that the one in the front, and if you're ready to speak to this, Josh, I'll let you. But one of them is designed for on-site irrigation use, and ours are the same. We have cisterns on the back of this building that do the same thing. Let's see if I can get to that really quick.
Yeah, so the two cisterns on the back end really more so just use gravity flow, just to release water into those lower elevations in the bioretention or in the grass area next to the other cistern. And then the other cisterns, they'll partially release into the bioretention area, but part of it will be used in the actual, irrigation system, in other areas of the site. So for either, slow drip in other grass areas like where Michelle's pointing at, so it can kind of transport some of that other water because it's using an under pressure irrigation system for the remainder of the water in the cisterns.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Thank you.
It'd be easier to see if you could see like the side of it, but we don't have all those details, but we can show you on other cisterns that we have here too,
Okay.
if you'd like to see more.
Michelle, how much area is around that in the project area that is not covered with impervious cover?
Do you know that, Josh? So essentially, this is a building, this is part of a building. I think
Almost
all of
that whole site's impervious, really. The bioretention areas, and then kind of the area right, kind of, I guess, south of those, in that area, that's the only other, really non-impervious part of the property for the most part. There's a few, there's one curb kind of island area where there's some grass as you're kind of coming in. But it's really a highly dense impervious cover site.
Is that half an acre or an acre? How much area is it?
Oh, do you know the acreage here, Josh? For the whole
It actually
site?
has, so drainage area B is half an acre,
Mm.
B 1.17. I think for the whole site it's probably like 0.9 acres.
Close to an acre?
Yeah, closer to an acre.
And are you all doing grasses that will retain water and allow more water to filter into the ground?
Yeah, do you know what the planting schedule for that is? Because essentially we'd like native plants. And because these bioretention areas are like bowls
Mm-hmm.
and they capture water and they can fill up, the plants at the bottom will be, things that can go underwater for maybe 24 hours.
Mm-hmm.
The plants on the side would be, plants that maybe like a little bit more water that can stand that. And then the plants on top would be more maybe drought tolerant plants that don't need a lot of water. So they're planted for that shape. But I haven't seen the schedule for this. So it may not be grasses.
Yeah, off the top of my head, there's probably, like some common ones or like Gulf Muley, Greg's Mistflower. But I'm not sure for this one off the top of my head what, plantings they did put in. But there's a typical template of, plants we use in those bioretention areas.
And for this project, we should have some review of that. So we'll make sure that they're planted with natives and that they can withstand those conditions.
But typically, if you increase the cover on the area, either with taller grasses or with mulch, you improve the amount of water that was filtered into the ground. And I'm wondering if that's done as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So there will be mulch. There's a specification for the mulch around the plants so that it keeps them cool. They don't get too hot. It filters more of that pollutant out.
Well, I have a question. The footprint of the prior building as compared to the footprint of the new building. Is the new building completely on the footprint of the prior building?
That's a good question.
I know it's
Have you
larger,
seen that, Josh?
I believe from the previous aerial that it's very comparable, especially the part of the footprint that's closer to the water is pretty closely aligned.
Okay, and then the parking lot, I'm assuming that the parking lot was partly destroyed during the process of building. There was not ever plans to put in a pervious cover or porous pavement or pavers for the parking instead of impervious cover?
Do you want to take that or?
So somebody else originally started, this project. So I'm not 100% sure, what those early discussions were. But I think that they're probably able to get more treatment for this site by utilizing the bioretention and cisterns versus the permeable pavement. one of the issues with the permeable pavement is it's hard for it to have a high contributing drainage area. So, it can handle some of the parking areas, but it's not going to be able to handle a high amount of, impervious parking area. And then the cost kind of starts to get higher. And then, that becomes a concern in the project as well. But I think with the, bioretention, they were able to kind of, more efficiently get more, treatment probably on the property than they could have with the permeable pavement.
Oh, okay. What about the newer?
That's like 2030.
Sorry about that.
Sorry about that, everybody.
I think
I think I
accidentally.
accidentally.
Oh, what
What
changed?
changed?
Sorry. Oh my goodness. Can you guys hear me?
It's kind of got feedback and kind of ringing.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I think
Did it
that's
stop?
better now.
Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me online?
Yes.
Oh, okay. They say they can hear me online. Josh? Yeah, I didn't touch anything. I'm sorry. The city and the River Authority are part of something called the SA 2030 district, where we're looking at essentially combating climate change, and its focus is on downtown urban core. And so they're really heavily involved in the built environment, looking at building sustainability. But we're starting to incorporate green infrastructure, and as part of a cool city, Global Cool City Alliance.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of research in not only green infrastructure, but also cool pavements. And because heat is a pollutant, a water quality pollutant, we're researching this as well. And we're talking to try to get a pilot project. And so the question is, just where that will happen first, and then how quickly that can be adopted. Cities like LA and Phoenix have started doing pilot projects, and so we're getting a lot of research from them. They have a lot of vendors out there. We don't have any vendors here in San Antonio. I think Austin is the closest place that's also looking into this. So it's definitely a technology that we'd like to pilot and then see where it goes from there. Because you're right, white reflective surfaces don't capture heat, and so they don't heat up our water quality or our water as it flows into our creeks and rivers, killing fish. We get a lot of fish kills that way. So I don't believe that they're looking at it for this project. They could be doing concrete, which I'm not positive, but that would also be a lighter surface. But concrete is, I think, more expensive than asphalt. So I don't know if Josh, if you know the surface of the parking lot they'll be looking at there.
Can you go back to the last slide? I can't remember if
Oh,
it might.
sorry, could you say that again?
Oh, can you go back to the last slide? I think I want to say it's asphalt for this project.
But I will say,
As I understand, we're also redoing our parking
definitely talk to.
Look, our mic's not on.
Okay, now I think we can hear you.
This is a water polisher takeout.
Seeing that. Josh, can you hear me? No?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, awesome. Ooh, I think we got it again. It was magic. So we were just curious, do you know the
percentage of the pollutants that the water polisher takes out?
I know it's on this website, but yeah.
It depends on kind of the flow rate, how much how much CFS you have actually going through it. And then also kind of, they have different sizes of them as well. So it's kind of dependent, but I think as far as TSS, it was somewhere between 80 and 90%, I believe, reduction. So it's really
90%.
What was that percentage again?
like 80 to 90% of TSS removal, I believe.
So
Yeah.
total suspended solids, that's a criteria that we're looking to remove because it also carries with it bacteria. So you'll see a lot of people looking to measure TSS. So that's pretty good.
And there's some, some variations of the filter that you can install. So if you're in a certain area that has, nitrogen or phosphorus problems, like you can, customize what type of filter you're installing to make sure you're getting out the things that you're, wanting to get out.
Is there a baseline? Is there a baseline that you've established?
I mean, the manufacturer has, data behind testing that they've done, but we haven't installed any and tested it ourselves. And so, we're not, wanting to get too far down the road with these until we can, monitor one for ourselves. So that's one of the reasons we're, incorporating it into that Roosevelt project, just to make sure that we can get that baseline data and be comfortable with it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I don't think we have any questions online. Any other?
Yes, I have something, well, that I would just like to offer. And that is that I've called Mina Paul to be trained in the water testing thing. And I haven't heard back from her, but I kind of have a feeling that things may be a little topsy-turvy because of all of the, y'all moving and stuff. But I would be very interested in, I am a master naturalist. So it would add on to, that water certification. I'd be really interested in getting that. And also, you said you had points going on down the river and, multiple places where you check it, and some of them, the data it's actually moving, flow. So I would just like to know more about that. That's very interesting to me.
Yeah, definitely. Mina Paul just moved into this building with us. Our Gunther folks have moved into, we're all here together, essentially. And so, yeah, she went through moving, I think, last week. But I can get her in touch with you. I know that she's done some Texas Stream Team training for the community, and I don't know when she's planning on that next training. But I believe she's also working with Lee Marlowe to put on a Master Naturalist training, I want to say next week.
For water?
I think it has to do with the next class, training the next class. So that's
like you used to do at EcoCentro for us.
I think so.
Oh man, yeah.
But I can share,
Okay.
put you guys in contact.
I would really like, because we had plans to do it, and then COVID came, and then, it's been put off by over a year. And I mean, that a lot of people can say that. It's just kind of the way our life has been.
I think she did an online training.
She did. I can speak a little bit on that.
Sorry, just for the folks on the phone. Yeah, so Mina was offering. There we go. Okay.
Mina was offering the the online training for several different programs for the River Warriors. We shifted a little bit and focused on launching our latest trash initiative campaign. So I think right now she is at kind of a standstill, but the online trainings that were recorded, I think, are still available. So we can put you in touch with her and figure out what those next steps look like. I know nothing is current as of this quarter, but whatever was recorded earlier this year might still be available. Yeah, definitely.
I'll give you my name.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
All right. Anything else? We can certainly follow up on email. You guys all were part of this invitation, so you can reply to that and contact myself. I think Josh is on that as well, and so is Jeanette. So that's a good way to connect with us as well. And we can share maybe some events.
Mira.
I'm not. That's okay. I have not been really involved with Westside Creeks. I know I do the kind of public communications part of our department, but we have our government affairs that take care of those community efforts. Maybe Mira.
Oh, yeah, that was with Minna also. The Texas Stream team, I think they had the water quality monitoring kits, and that was the, oh,
The lab part is the $500. I mean, the kits are available, but then you have to pay the lab to figure it out, right?
I
give you the
think there's
results.
some people that get trained in that, and some of those kits can be pretty expensive. And I want to say Lisa Martinez and Scott and who at Eco Centro? Di Rios, yes.
But I don't think they have them tomorrow, right?
Maybe
No,
they're
they have
closed. I think
Yeah,
they might be
They're
closed.
available right now.
I think that
Maybe
Minna
they-
was also working through that too. So the River Authority purchased some of those kits too. Oh, awesome. Awesome. I recognize you from that training. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming and for all your questions. And thank you online, Josh, and for our online participants,
Yes,
Debbie
thank
and
you.
JD.
Yes, it was very interesting. Thank you so much for giving us this time.
Yes, we
Yeah.
really appreciate
It's
it.
our
Yes,
pleasure.
to explain all this stuff, it's so exciting. I started working on the stuff going into Woodlawn Lake when Chris Medina was District 7 council person. And the people that helped me were the people here, even though y'all didn't have to, because it was City of San Antonio. And when I found out you were going to be working in Woodlawn Lake, I cannot tell you how happy that made me.
Awesome.
So,
Well, we're happy to
because
help.
I've been such an admirer of y'all's work. So,
Thank you. Well, thank you for your interest.
sure.
Please feel free to communicate anytime.
Yes,
Thank
thanks.
you so much.
It seems like it's such an important commodity that's going to get more and more precious. So it's just really nice to see stewards, realizing that
We agree.
now before we get really in danger. Yeah.
Awesome. And we are too. Thank you. Sorry, was there some comments online? Debbie, were you going to say something, or I saw your mic's off or your
No, I
mute's
just
off?
said thank you. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. Thank you for attending.
No, I was just gonna say thanks everyone for your time, and like Michelle said, like feel free to reach out. We're always open for communication and ideas, and we're glad to have people that are invested and are interested in the same things as us. So definitely glad to talk to everyone.
Awesome. All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and close, and feel free to email us. You've got our email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thanks, Josh.
I know we're getting to be pros at this online online in-person thing. All right, I'm going to close out this meeting and meeting for all.